Nobody told you this directly, because if they did, you'd probably feel uncomfortable. For years, you've been taught to believe that wealth comes with effort, patience, and honesty, almost like a moral reward. But what if I told you that's only half the truth? And perhaps the least important part? What truly builds wealth isn't how hard you work, but how well you understand the game. And this game isn't pretty, it isn't fair, and it's definitely not based on ideals. It's based on reality-driven politics, not ideals. And when you start to see that, something inside you breaks, because you realize you might have spent too much time playing the wrong way. Now think about it. How many people do you know who work hard every day and stay in the same place? And how many have you seen grow incredibly fast, almost as if they were at a different pace? It's not luck, it's not chance, it's strategy, it's perception, it's positioning. While most are focused on doing more, a select few are focused on doing better. They are applying, consciously or unconsciously, principles that Machiavelli described centuries ago. Calculated use of force, appearance of virtue, decisions based on real human nature. And the most curious thing, these principles are happening all around you all the time. You just haven't been trained to see them. And here comes the part that might bother you. Accumulating wealth is in fact painfully obvious, not because it's easy, but because once you understand it, you can no longer pretend you don't know. You start to see exactly where you went wrong, where you hesitated, where you trusted too much, where you let opportunities pass you by. And that can hurt, but it can also set you free. Because from that moment on, you stop depending on luck, recognition, or external validation. You start acting with intention, with strategy, with awareness, and that's exactly what this content will show you. Not what seems right, but what really works. If something inside you awakened while listening, don't ignore that feeling. This channel isn't about videos, it's about memories. Remember who you were before the fear, before the exhaustion, before the silence. Each new video here is a different reflection of your own soul, an invitation to understand what the world never taught you. The power you seek outside has always been within you. If you feel that this journey speaks to what lives silently within you, sign up now. Not to follow yet another creator, but to reconnect with something the world tried to make you forget. Because here, every word was made to heal, each reflection to awaken, and each video serves as a reminder you are not alone on the path back to yourself. Click on subscribe and turn the algorithm into a daily reminder of who you really are. He'd spent his whole life hearing the same story. Work hard, be honest, be patient, and everything would work out. Sounds nice, almost comforting, right? But in practice, this narrative was designed to keep people exactly where they are. It's no coincidence. While he wakes up early, faces traffic, follows orders, and waits for a promotion that never comes, someone up there is playing a completely different game. A game where pure effort isn't worth as much as strategy, where politics guided by reality, not ideals, isn't just a phrase, it's the rule. And that's where the first crack in this belief appears. Working hard isn't wrong, but working hard without understanding the system is like running on a treadmill. It's tiring, but it doesn't get you anywhere. He starts to realize this when he sees someone less hard-working but more strategic, advancing faster. And that bothers him because it reveals a truth that nobody likes to admit. Gradually, he realizes that the problem was never effort. It was direction. He always believed that being good, doing everything right and following the rules would be enough. But no one ever explained which rules really matter. The ones that aren't in books or motivational speeches, the hidden rules. What Machiavelli already said coldly and directly, decisions based on real human nature. Because in the real world, people don't necessarily reward those who are more honest or more hardworking. They reward those who generate perceived value, who know how to position themselves, who understand the game. And here's a crucial point. Better to be feared than loved doesn't talk about literal fear. It talks about respect, influence, presence. He begins to notice that those who grow quickly don't ask for permission. They position themselves. They don't wait for recognition. They build perception. They don't follow the path. They create shortcuts. And this completely changes how he begins to see money. And then comes the greater discomfort, because when he realizes this, he can no longer unsee it. That old morality begins to seem naive, not useless, but limited. He understands that the world doesn't function based on justice, but on power, perception, and strategy. That the end justifies the means doesn't mean acting wrongly, but rather understanding that results matter. That intention without results doesn't pay the bills. And even more so, that the appearance of virtue often opens more doors than pure virtue. This doesn't mean abandoning values, but rather understanding when to use them and when not to let them limit you. It's as if he's beginning to see the chessboard for the first time and realizing that he's always played without knowing the rules. And at that moment, a silent question arises that begins to bother him. If working hard isn't enough, then what really makes someone rich? He begins to realize something that, at first, sounds almost like an affront. Money has no morals. This shatters everything he's been taught. Because since childhood, he's heard that honest money comes with effort, sacrifice, and time. But observing the world more objectively, he realizes that money doesn't choose who is good or bad. It simply flows to those who understand how to capture it. It's almost like electricity. It doesn't matter who you are. What matters is whether you know how to connect the wires. And here's a point that few dare to make. Effort without strategy doesn't generate wealth. It may generate exhaustion. It may generate survival. But it rarely generates abundance. He begins to notice that extremely hard-working people remain trapped, while others, with less apparent effort, advance quickly because they know where and how to act. This isn't injustice, it's structure. And when he understands this, something changes within him. He stops romanticizing effort and begins to value effectiveness. That idea of giving your best begins to be replaced by getting the right result. It seems subtle, but it changes everything. He begins to study smarter moves, how to choose markets, how to identify opportunities, how to position an offer. For example, instead of working longer hours, he starts asking, where is the money already circulating? In which niches are people paying high prices? Health, finance, relationships. There has always been money in these markets. He realizes that creating something within these spaces is much more efficient than trying to invent something from scratch. And this connects directly to Machiavelli's vision of virtù and fortuna, the ability to act plus the capacity to seize opportunities. Luck is not random. It favors those who are prepared and position themselves in the right place. But perhaps the most uncomfortable point is understanding that money doesn't reward emotional effort. It doesn't care if you tried hard, if you deserve it, if you were a good person. It responds to perceived value, strategy, and execution. And this is where many get stuck, because it requires abandoning an old identity. That identity of someone who believes that one day they will recognize my effort. They won't, at least not automatically. It's necessary to build that recognition, and that requires something few develop: constant strategic thinking. Calculated use of force, as Machiavelli would say, knowing where to put energy, where to retreat, where to insist. Because in the end, it's not about working harder, but about playing better. And when they begin to understand this, a new question arises. If money is strategic, then how does morality enter this game? He grew up believing that morality was a fixed compass, something that should never be questioned, to always do the right thing. But observing how the world really works, he begins to realize something uncomfortable. Morality, in practice, is often used as a tool, not as an absolute rule. And this is not an invitation to error. It's an invitation to lucidity. Machiavelli already warned about this when he spoke of the appearance of virtue. It's not enough to be good. You have to appear good when it suits you. And even more so, to know when moral rigidity can harm you. Because in the real game, there are times when blindly following a principle can cost you opportunities that will never return. He begins to realize that those who advance are not necessarily the most righteous, but the most adaptable. Those who understand when to act gently and when to apply a calculated use of force. And this becomes clear in practical, everyday situations. Imagine someone negotiating a salary. If they enter with only humility and expect recognition, they will probably leave with less than they could. But if they understand the value they deliver, build perception, and negotiate firmly, the result changes completely. Or in the digital world, those who create content often don't show the whole truth. They show what generates a perception of authority. This isn't necessarily a lie. It's strategy. Decisions based on real human nature. People don't buy only for what is true. They buy for what they perceive as valuable, and that's where they begin to understand that morality isn't about abandoning principles. It's about knowing how to use them intelligently, being honest but not naive, being strategic but not destructive. Finding this balance is what separates those who remain stuck from those who move forward. The most important point here is that he stops seeing the world as right or wrong and starts seeing it as works or doesn't work. This changes everything, because now he no longer reacts emotionally. He observes, analyzes, and decides. Constant adaptability. He understands that at times, showing vulnerability generates connection. At other times, showing firmness generates respect. In some cases, total transparency is powerful. In others, silence is even more so. And this flexibility becomes an incredible advantage, because while many are stuck trying to always be consistent with a single identity, he learns to play according to the scenario. And at this point, a new insight emerges that begins to unsettle him. If morality can be adjusted, then what really determines the opportunities a person receives? He finally realizes something that completely changes how he sees the world. It's not just about who you are, but about how you are seen. It may seem superficial at first glance, but that's exactly how opportunities circulate. People don't have access to your true self. They have access to your image, your posture, your positioning. And it's based on that they decide whether to trust you, whether to buy from you, whether to open doors for you. This is where the idea of virtuous appearance gains enormous weight. It's not enough to have value. You need to communicate that value strategically. He begins to notice that people with less knowledge, but with better communication and presence, get more space, not because they are better, but because they are perceived as better. And that changes the game completely. And when he understands this, he starts acting differently. He begins to care about how he speaks, how he dresses, how he positions himself, how he presents himself online. He realizes that authority isn't just content. It's aesthetics, consistency, clarity. For example, a well-structured Instagram or LinkedIn profile with professional photos, direct messages, and social proof already creates a completely different perception. A well-edited video with good lighting and a firm narrative positions someone as an expert, even if they are just starting out. This isn't falsehood, it's strategy. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals. The world responds to perception. He begins to understand that branding isn't a luxury, it's an access tool. It's what makes someone invited, remembered, chosen, and this applies to everything: business, career, relationships. Whoever controls perception controls opportunities. But the most interesting point is that when he masters this, he no longer needs to chase after everything. Things start coming to him. Because he has built an image that attracts. He becomes a reference in some space, even if small at the beginning. And this creates a domino effect. More visibility, more connections, more money, better to be feared than loved. Here translates as silent respect, that feeling that the person knows what they are doing. They don't need to shout, they don't need to over-convince. Their presence speaks for itself, and at that moment he realizes that isolated effort was never the main thing. Positioning always was. And then an even greater unease arises. If perception opens doors, then why do some people manage to seize opportunities while others freeze when it comes time to act? He begins to realize that many opportunities don't come twice, and even worse, they don't give warning when they're passing by. For a long time, he believed he needed to be 100% ready, with everything perfect, without room for error. But this pursuit of perfection was actually just a disguised form of fear. While he overanalyzed, overthought, overcalculated, someone less prepared, but more daring, was already executing. And, in the real world, imperfect execution almost always beats perfect planning. This is where the idea of virtu et fortuna becomes practical, the ability to act plus the courage to seize the moment. Luck, in the end, is not a magical accident. It's a direct consequence of those who expose themselves more, test more, risk more. He begins to realize that those who grow quickly don't wait for security, they create momentum. And this starts to change his daily behavior. Instead of spending months planning a project, he tests quickly. Want to start a YouTube channel? He doesn't wait for the perfect scenario. He records with what he has. Want to sell a product? He doesn't wait to validate everything. He launches a simple version and observes the response. Want to enter a new market? He doesn't take 1,000 courses beforehand. He enters, makes mistakes, adjusts. This is calculated use of force. It's not about doing everything without thinking. It's understanding that action generates information, and information generates advantage. He begins to understand that each quick mistake is a shortcut to success. While many avoid mistakes, he starts to use mistakes as a tool, and this creates an absurd speed of learning. Because in the end, whoever tests more, learns more. Whoever learns more, earns more. But perhaps the most uncomfortable thing is realizing that hesitation is costly, very costly. Opportunities that could completely change the game simply disappear because he took too long to act. And when he sees someone else occupying that space that could be his, the feeling is clear. It wasn't a lack of ability, it was a lack of action. And that hurts. Because it reveals that the greatest risk was never trying and failing. It was not trying. He begins to understand that in the real game, excessive security is a trap. Constant adaptability demands movement, not waiting. And from that point on, he starts acting before he feels ready, and that's precisely when everything starts to accelerate. But then a new realization emerges. If acting quickly is so powerful, why might trusting other people be the greatest risk along the way? He always believed that loyalty was one of the strongest pillars of relationships, that if he were honest, faithful, and present, people would do the same for him. But with time and some very direct experiences, he begins to realize that most relationships aren't guided by loyalty. They're guided by self-interest. This doesn't mean people are bad. It means they're human. Decisions based on real human nature. Each person acts seeking what makes the most sense to them at that moment, and that completely changes the game. Because when he understands this, he stops creating unrealistic expectations. He realizes that depending on the goodwill of others to grow financially is a fragile strategy, very fragile. Partnerships break down, agreements change, promises are forgotten. And whoever builds their life based on that inevitably becomes frustrated, and this insight begins to change how he positions himself. He doesn't stop trusting people, but he starts trusting intelligently. He begins to structure relationships where there is a clear exchange of value, not just emotional expectation. For example, instead of depending on a trusted partner for everything, he creates systems where each party has well-defined responsibilities, clear metrics, and aligned incentives. Instead of believing that someone will help him because they like him, he creates situations where helping is also advantageous for the other person. That's strategy. That's politics guided by reality, not ideals. He understands that true loyalty exists, but it's rare, built over time and sustained by mutual interest. It's not something you assume, it's something you validate. And perhaps the most liberating point is realizing that this isn't negative. It's predictable. When he understands how people really work, he stops being disappointed and starts anticipating. He begins to observe behaviors, patterns, signals. Who delivers? Who disappears? Who only shows up when they need something? This becomes strategic information. He starts building his own loyal armies in the Machiavellian sense, not blindly faithful people, but structures and relationships that function even when someone fails. And this provides real security, not emotional security. Because now he doesn't depend on anyone in a vulnerable way. He cooperates, but doesn't blindly rely on anyone. And at that moment, a new level of awareness emerges. If you can't depend on people, then how do the truly wealthy build something that works independently of any individual? He begins to realize that the truly wealthy don't play the same game as most. They don't depend on constant effort, fragile relationships, or isolated luck. They build something far more powerful: systems. Structures that function independently of their mood, motivation, or even their presence. While many still trade time for money, they create mechanisms where money keeps flowing in even when they are absent. This isn't magic, it's strategy. Own loyal armies here aren't people, but processes, assets, distribution channels, a well-structured sales funnel, a validated digital product, a running traffic operation. All of this functions as a system, and that's exactly what separates those who work for money from those who make money work for them. And when he understands this, the way he views work changes completely. He stops asking, "How much can I earn per hour?" and starts asking, "How can I build something that generates money without directly depending on me?" This shifts the focus to assets. For example, creating a YouTube channel that monetizes with AdSense and digital products, setting up a paid traffic operation selling nutraceuticals, building an email list that can be activated at any time. These are all systems. And here comes the Machiavellian thinking applied to business. Calculated use of force. He learns to direct energy to create something that continues to generate results in the long term, instead of spending energy just to survive in the short term. He begins to think like a strategist, not an executor. But perhaps the most powerful thing is realizing that these systems ignore emotion. They don't depend on motivation. They don't depend on perfect discipline. They don't depend on being okay every day. They work because they were built to work. That's constant adaptability applied in practice. If a creative doesn't work, you change it. If a channel doesn't convert, you adjust it. If a product doesn't sell, you reposition it. The system continues, it just evolves. And this creates something that most never achieve: predictability. And when it reaches that level, it realizes that money stops being something it chases and starts being something that responds to what it has built. And it is precisely at this point that the final turning point occurs. Because when it sees all this clearly, the game changes completely. He didn't do anything extraordinary. He didn't suddenly become smarter. He didn't gain a magical talent. He didn't have a brilliant idea out of nowhere. What changed was simpler, and at the same time rarer. He began to see reality as it is, without romanticization, without comfortable illusions. And that changes absolutely everything. Because when he understands that money is not morality, that perception is power, that action generates advantage, and that systems build wealth, he stops chasing money like someone desperate. He begins to position himself so that money comes to him. It seems subtle, but it's a brutal change in mindset. Before, he sought opportunities. Now, he creates contexts where opportunities appear. This is virtù et fortuna in its purest form, the ability to act combined with the preparedness to recognize the right moment. And this new way of seeing the world transforms even the smallest daily decisions. He no longer accepts just any job. He chooses environments where he can grow. He doesn't enter into just any partnership. He evaluates incentives, structure, alignment. He doesn't create random content. He thinks about positioning, audience, perception. Every move becomes strategic. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals. He understands that the game was never about working harder. It was about playing better. And, little by little, he begins to see patterns that were previously invisible. Where there is money, where there is attention, where there is power. He realizes that most people are too busy surviving to notice the game happening. And this creates an absurd advantage for those who see it. But perhaps the most interesting thing is the silent effect of all this. He stops feeling that constant anxiety of, I need to earn more. Because now he knows exactly what he needs to do. He understands the path. And this brings a different kind of confidence, not that empty confidence of motivation, but a confidence based on clarity. He knows that by applying these principles, the result is a matter of time and execution. The end justifies the means. Here translates to absolute focus on the result without unnecessary distractions. And at that point, the game really changes. Because he is no longer playing at the level of the majority. He is operating consciously. And whoever operates consciously inevitably stands out. Now let me ask you a direct question. Are you going to continue playing the game the way you were taught? Or are you finally going to start playing the game as it really is? Because by now, you've realized it's not about working harder, it's about seeing things more clearly. How many opportunities have you let slip by because of hesitation? How many decisions have you made based on ideals and not reality? And being honest with yourself, how long are you going to keep waiting for the world to reward you for effort when it clearly rewards strategy? This isn't a criticism, it's an invitation to get out of autopilot and take control of your own game. Now consider this. If you applied just one of these ideas today, what would change? Would you start to position yourself better, to act faster, to stop depending on the approval of others? Perhaps you would start building something that works without you, a system, a structure, an asset, because in the end, that's what separates those who live on the edge from those who build wealth. Decision, not motivation, not luck. Decision. Calculated use of force. Constant adaptability. Virtù and fortuna. These aren't just pretty concepts, they're tools, and tools only work when they're used. So the question stops being, did I understand this? And becomes, what am I going to do with this now? And if this content has opened your mind in any way, it doesn't stop here, because this is just the beginning. There are even deeper layers to this game that most people will never access, simply because they don't want to face reality as it is. So if you want to continue evolving, learning to think strategically and stand out from the crowd, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Because here you won't find comfort, you'll find clarity. And sometimes that's exactly what changes everything.